Hello friends, Stephen Bedall here. In this video, we're going to cover one of the final and most important steps in your Cubase workflow, exporting your music so it's ready to share, stream, or send off for mastering. We'll walk through the various export settings, choosing the right file formats like WAV or MP3, file name management, and I'll show you how to export multiple different file types, track stems, and even track arrangements all at once. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm ready to export this track, and the very first thing that I need to do is set my left and right locators, which live up here at the top. By setting my left and right locators, I'm telling Cubase which part of this track I want to export. And of course, I want to export the entire length of this track. So we can drag these locators to the position that we want. The easiest way to do it in this case would be to select all of my audio events, and then I'm going to hit P on my keyboard. And that will automatically set my locators to the same length as these audio events. So let's come up to File, go to Export, and select Audio Mixdown. So here is the Cubase export window, and there is quite a lot that we can do here. So as I said, I just want to export a single audio file from this session. So first thing I'm going to do is hit Single, and we have my stereo out channel selected. That's what I want. So looking up here at File Location, I've got my name here if you want it. I've set my path here. This is where the file is going to end up once it's exported. And we have a preview here of how the file is going to be named. And this is a little strange. This doesn't look right. So let's come up to this gear icon on the top right and set up our naming scheme. Under Result here, I'm going to click this garbage can icon. I'll just remove all. There were some attributes there in the file name that we didn't need. So looking down at our preview here, this file is just going to be called If You Want It. That works for me for now. But we'll come back to this naming scheme a bit later when we export stems. All right, so I'll click OK, and let's come down here to file format. We can choose between WAV file, AIFF, FLAC, or we can do an MP3 file. So if I select MP3 here, we can choose high quality mode. For this track, I'm going to export a WAV file though. Let's come back to WAV, and I'll keep my bit depth and sample rate as is, 2448. I'm going to leave all of these boxes unchecked. And lastly, let's come down to export range and let's set this to locators. Okay, so Cubase sees the left and right locator position that we've set, and I'm good to go here. Let's export audio. Okay, so Cubase will just take a minute here to export the track. Okay, perfect. So here's my WAV file in my Mixdown folder on my computer. So as you can see, exporting your project to a single audio file, it's actually quite easy. And this is exactly what I would do if I were going to upload it to streaming services, for example. Now, there's other times where I need to export much more than just one audio file. For example, if I need to send track stems to a mixing or mastering engineer. They might ask me to send them each channel and group channel in my project as individual audio files. They might even ask me to send them my effects tracks as well. Now, I personally write a lot of production music for various different publishers, and they ask me for this kind of stuff all the time. They even ask me to export different arrangements of my song. And this is one of the many reasons that I love using Cubase, because you can easily accomplish all of that in the export window, and you can batch all of those tasks together. Let me show you how. So before I bring up the export window again, I want to quickly show you this arrangement track that I've set up here at the top. Setting up an arrangement track like this is super easy. All you got to do is add track, and under More, you'll find Arranger. So that's what I've done here. And clearly you can see that I've marked the different sections of my arrangement. Now take a look at the inspector over here on the left. What we can do is create different arranger chains. And this is going to be useful when we export this track. So for example, arranger chain 1 can just be the entire arrangement as is. So we can just double click our events down here to add them to the chain. And there you go. Chain 1 is looking good. Let's create a new chain. And for this alternate arrangement, let's say I just want to start with my intro, go into verse 1. I'll skip the pre-chorus. We'll just go right into chorus 1. I'll skip the breakdown 2, go right into verse 2, and then I'll skip the last pre-chorus as well. So we've built a different arrangement here completely. I could even add another chain where we just export the chorus. Okay, so you get the idea. So let's come back to File, Export, Audio Mixdown. And this time under Channel Selection, we're going to choose Multiple. Okay, and there's quite a few different things that I want to export here. Let's come all the way down to the bottom and open up the Export queue. So as for which channels I'd like to export here, I'm going to select our stereo out channel, just like we did last time. And I'm also going to export my group channels. So I've got my drums group, guitars, vocals, and textures group. And I've got a few channels in this session that aren't being bussed into any groups. For instance, my bass, my electric keys, my synths. And I'm also going to export my effects channels. So we'll export my hall verb and my studio delay. Now let's come over to the file location and we'll open up this naming scheme window again. And looking at our file preview here at the bottom, again, there's some attributes here that I do and don't want. So I do want the name. I do want the channel type. I also want the channel name. I don't need the project name. And in this case, I don't need the channel number either. Okay, so our preview is starting to look better, but I actually don't really like this hyphen here separating the different attributes. I prefer to use an underscore. So I'm just going to replace that with an underscore. There we go, much better. Let's click OK. And again, I'm going to leave these settings as is. I want wave 2448. This all looks good. Now, because we're choosing to export multiple groups and channels here, we have some control over how much of the signal path is going to be included in those files. So if we pull down this effects menu, we can include all of our channel insert effects and channel strip effects. Or we can disable those and export files that are completely dry, no effects at all. Our third choice here includes all of our inserts and channel strip effects, and it will include any of the sends that might be going to our effects channels. And lastly, we can export tracks that include the entire signal chain, including all of the effects and channel strip choices that we made on the master output. So with our selection so far, let's click Add to Queue. And great, there we can see all of our files here. They're ready to be exported, but I'm not done yet. Let's say I also want to export an MP3 version of my stereo out track. So I'll deselect these tracks. Let's change the file type to MP3. And let's also go ahead and add that to the queue. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see that my MP3 stereo output track is ready to be exported. And one last thing I want to do. Let's come back to this export range box and let's choose Arranger. So as you remember, I created 3 separate Arranger chains. Let's select those. Let's come back over here to file format. I'll change it back to WAV, 24-bit, 48K. Got my stereo out track selected. And let's go ahead and add those 3 different arrangements to the queue as well. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff here. And we've selected our path, same place as before, and we're ready to go here. So I'll start queue export and let Cubase do its thing. So we can see our progress bars here. So that was really quick, just took a couple of minutes. And we're looking in my mixdown folder here, and I've got everything that I need. I've got my full stereo out mix in WAV and MP3. I've got my 4 group tracks here. I've got my 2 effects tracks. I've got my 3 audio stems here that weren't going through any groups. And I've got my 3 separate arrangement chain mixdowns. So if you remember, arrangement chain number 3 was just my chorus. Perfect. Now, one thing that I kind of messed up here is you've probably noticed that these Arranger chain files aren't using the same naming scheme that we selected for all of our other tracks. And I should have mentioned that when you change your export range from Locators to Arranger, you're going to have to come up to your naming scheme and choose your settings for that separately. I also didn't come up with very creative names for these chains, and that's something that I could change here. So for example, we could rename Arranger chain 1 to full mix, for example. And that would, of course, look a lot better when we export those files. So that's how you export your music in Cubase. And as you can see, the export window is incredibly useful, and it makes my life a lot easier when it comes to exporting track stems, different file types, and alternate arrangements. Once you've got these steps down, getting your tracks ready for streaming, sharing, or mastering becomes quick and stress-free. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to check out some of our other videos on this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.